Joining us right now, Senator, Minister, friend Amanda Stoker, and former Senator, former Minister, but constant friend, Bronwyn Bishop. Ladies, hello. So, your thoughts on today, and again, this glaring idea that it's pretty obvious now that the polls are tightening. So, Bronwyn, do you have hope, or it's not enough? If the media tomorrow, the front pages everywhere is Prime Minister crash tackles child.
Well, no, I do believe there's still a pathway for the coalition to win. And as for that footage about the soccer game, that looked to me like he tripped and he was cradling the child to stop it being injured. So I would think as a woman, other women would see the cradling nature of it. But most importantly, what we're seeing with this polling, we're seeing polls that are in different sets. We've got legitimate polling, we've got fake polling, and they're going on in all the Simon Says seats, the Simon Says Tealies, and they're putting out again and again polling that says they're going to win because they want the bandwagon effect.
Correct.
But they are Shonky Brothers polling company.
Yeah, there's
and it's just got to be ignored, but showed up for how desperate they are.
Yeah, so closing days, Amanda, what's your sense here? Do you believe that the polls, if they were wrong when you were losing, are they right when you're on the way to winning?
I really do think there is a pathway to win. It is tight. I've been on the pre-poll booth every day in a whole range of electorates, and there's no doubt that it's tight, but a lot of people are keeping their cards close to their chest, and I think that speaks to the fact that, first, many people aren't prepared to declare their hand because they are a little bit uncertain themselves, that there is a reasonably high number of people who are still making up their mind. But I think it also speaks to that huge number of quiet Australians who don't necessarily respond to polls or don't participate in the fake polling and have really got far too busy lives to be engaged with politics really until the campaign. So there's plenty of room to run in this, but there are 3 days left to make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, guys, can we bring back that graphic from the start of the show about right direction, wrong direction? Again, there's lots of different things that you can read into polls, but if you are the party that's trying to boot out a government and 20-something% of your supporters say we're headed in the right direction, a big chunk are still in undecided, that literally the Greens are more enthusiastic about wrong track than Labor supporters, that reads something into me that he's got the same problem Shorten did, which is a lack of enthusiasm for his leadership, the case that he has made.
Look, I think that shows up. We see the difference between voting intention between men and women shown up and said, Morrison's got a problem with women. No, Albanese has a problem with men.
Yes.
They do not see him as a leader. And I see that a lot of the undecideds are in fact women who are very careful assessors of what they see, and they know that this country's headed for trouble. We're headed into troubled waters. And this is not the time to be changing. This is not the time when you can think, as it was in 2007 with $20 billion in the bank and balanced budgets and everything else, and you could look at Kevin Rudd and think, oh, look, he's a younger version, he says, of John Howard. It's not that sort of context this time. It is really a difference. As you say, it is time 3 days to save the country. And it really is when I talk to people generally, and it could be when I was out campaigning in Pearson in Perth with our candidate, who's an excellent woman. She, in fact, Linda Aitken, she was recognised by people and people were saying, we're supporting you. So that's quiet on the ground stuff. And it was really quite interesting because it was spontaneous. So when you see the difference between that and somebody who's been rung up by a robocall or whatever to try and get an assessment, I think that there's still a strong pathway to win.
I tell you what I loved today. I loved, Amanda, that the Prime Minister was very direct about we're not going backwards when it comes to COVID and how we're dealing with COVID. Again, to those Freedom Party people, he was absolute about whatever that UN garbage was, not going to be doing it. Yet Albo says, new national strategy. Remember, that new national strategy would be written by the Queensland Labor Premier, the Northern Territory Labor Chief Minister, the Western Australian Labor Premier, the South Australian Labor Premier, the Victorian Labor Premier.
let's be frank, Australians have had 2 rotten years at the hands of COVID and premiers who overreach, using it as an excuse to use fear as a tactic to cultivate their own popularity. Now, that's a wrong thing to do. And for anybody who's concerned about the overreach of governments into the lives of individuals, the choice here is very, very clear. You can have Mr Albanese, who wants to keep the door open to wield those powers for the foreseeable future and in unclear quantity, or you can have the PM who says, we've closed the book on COVID and we are living alongside it. We are not going back to lockdowns. This brings me back to a point that I think is really important in the Senate. Those who are tempted by the UAP might think that it's a good thing to go with Clive Palmer and his mates because they've told them everything they want to hear about individual freedom. But the truth is, none of that matters when you're standing on the sidelines. What matters is that you've got people in the rooms that matter who care about your freedom, people in the rooms who matter, who are prepared to do the right thing. You get that in the Prime Minister. You get that, for instance, in somebody like me in the Senate. You don't get that with minor parties who are big talking.
Now, a reminder to everyone, by the way, particularly in Queensland, you can choose your own adventure. You can pick the 6 senators that you would like, as opposed to straight up and down party voting. So if, like me, you're a big supporter of Amanda's, feel free to find a way to get her into your 6 that you can pick in the next little while. Just finally, before we go, Bronwyn, a little bit of mail that you received today. Yes. Has it changed your vote?
Certainly not. I was stunned to find this in my letterbox this morning.
Yeah, wow.
And criticism of the local member, Mr Flensky, who will be elected. But to find that being put about by saying that a former Liberal Prime Minister is supporting people against our own candidates, I think is just plain shocking. And I think that will work against the Teal people, that Simon says. But clearly this is all authorised from Melbourne. Oh, no, I beg your pardon. This one's from Sydney.
Yeah. But all I know, just a very happy.
It doesn't matter. It's a Simon Says leaflet that's been put out. But I just want to reinforce that point that you've made and has just been made on the importance of that second preference. It really does matter. You know, there will be many politicians who've given me advice over the years when you're saying, if you're standing for pre-selection or if you wanted this, always ask for that second preference because you're still in the race. And that's what can happen. That is what can bring success to the coalition.
I'm with you. Choose your own adventure in Queensland. Let's keep Amanda in there and you can have all the other options you wanted. Thank you very much, guys. Do appreciate it. All the best.